I know you heard a lot about the State of the Union address yesterday. I was talking about it a lot. I know. I get that. There's something in this, though, in the reaction and the aftermath you may not have heard about. And it's stunning. Absolutely amazing. I'm not going to go through the whole speech again. We all saw the highlights. We all heard the clips. We all heard President Trump's response. Maybe you haven't heard CBS News and CNN's response to it, though, because this was incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's really, really bad news for the Democrats because the approval ratings for this thing were through the roof. By all accounts, no matter how you want to measure this thing, talk about that as well. And the one Democrat who stood for all this thing is the one guy with common sense and they've done nothing but attack him, John Fetterman from Pennsylvania. Wait till you hear what he says about this. He gets it. And how'd you like to be a New York City police officer, right? And he got pelted with snowballs. You and I were talking about this the other day, I think Tuesday or Monday. And that's one thing. It's bad enough. It's disrespectful. It's kind of a crappy thing to do. What if he got no support whatsoever from the mayor in that city, though? And he doubled down on it, though. Called it a snowball fight. God. I don't know, New York. I think you're in trouble. Anyway, thanks for finding the Wicked Radio live stream. I think they're starting to fix the algorithm on X. The numbers say so anyway. I have no idea, so I just throw it out there to you. A live stream Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on X and Facebook and YouTube. Audio podcast replay always and replayed on these channels. Wherever you can find it. Thanks for being here. First and foremost, let's get to it. I'm not going to go through the whole State of the Union speech again. I get it. It's been a lot. But that in itself is kind of a story, isn't it? Let me just ask you and just think about this. Did you hear, normally nobody at work, nobody at your pickleball court, nobody at the gym is talking about a State of the Union address after it happens, usually. Did you notice something different this time that people were? The reaction, not just because it was Trump. Because according to all the networks, a lot of people tuned in to see this. According to them, if you want to believe the ratings. Online, traditional networks, all of it. And I know it gets a lot of coverage. So that's one thing. Here's the other thing. These very same networks, at least two of them particularly, had to admit in polls from their own viewers who were watching it at the time. They always grab a group of people and then they poll it and then they do telephone polls of their specific viewers. That's key to the story. The speech, as it turns out, was massively popular. I don't mean just people watching it. I mean people giving it a thumbs up approval rating. Is that just me saying this? No. Let's go to all places. We'll start off with this one. Let's go to CBS News. That's right. Traditional CBS. Their own snap poll of approval ratings. Somewhere or somehow this had to kill
CBS News instant poll here following the president's State of the Union. 76% of speech watchers said they approved of what they heard. 72% said they approved of the president's ideas for immigration.
Is it just me, or does he seem kind of depressed in talking about this on the snap poll after the speech the other night? But there's something even better. Now, this is really long because they're trying to qualify it and justify it and throw you every son's like a little disclaimer in here, so we'll jump around on it. The most amazing response to the speech the other night was CNN's own poll. Now, keep in mind, this is CNN. These are CNN viewers, okay, who are watching this. And they try to explain it away, saying it's not the whole country. It's just people who are interested anyway in this speech. It's not. But still, this was amazing for them to. And they had to admit it because this is their own poll they put together. And here's what they said.
Obviously, of all Americans. That would not be possible here. This is a poll of people who watched the speech. And what's important to note about that is that people who watch a president give a State of the Union tend to be more supportive of that president or in that president's party. We see this with Democratic presidents and Republican presidents. And so our survey tonight of speech watchers is about 11 points more Democratic as a body of people here that were polled.
Okay, I'm just going to pause there, and I'll get to it again in a second. So here's already thrown out before he gets to the number, this long-winded kind of way. They're trying to justify why this poll shot themselves in the foot. Well, it's not the whole country. It's just poll watchers that tend to be interested in this kind of thing anyway, and people who voted for this president tend to watch their speech, and that's all true. And then he kind of downplays the fact that he goes, and this and it's true. It tends to scale 11% more Democrat, but don't pay attention to that. They're trying to justify this thing away before they have to talk about the real numbers, which he gets to here in a second. And remember, this is CNN talking about the State of the Union speech.
Population in America. So just keep that in mind as we now show you what this instant reaction was of poll of speech watchers tonight, 41% had a very positive reaction to the president's speech. 29% somewhat positive, 29% negative. That 41%, when you compare it to last year's speech that Joe Biden gave to a joint session of Congress, that's about 10 points lower on the very positive scale. 51% last year, you see 41% today.
And then they try to compare it to the Biden and their viewers and all this other stuff. But 41% of viewers, CNN viewers, in a snap poll right after it, give it an approval rating. You don't have to believe me when I tell you this, but you can put all the pieces together yourself. This shook CNN to the core. They did not expect this. They did not expect President Trump on CNN to get such a high approval rating. Does it say the whole story? No, it doesn't. But they didn't like that. And that's bad news. That combined with the amount of people that were watching this, and all those same networks are saying this got some record ratings for people who watch speeches. That's bad. That's bad news. It's also bad news because you got one of the prominent Democrats, and he is, whether they want to admit it or not. They're trying to shoo this guy off to the side because he doesn't always agree with them. Because God forbid he's trying to insert some common sense into this entire thing. Senator John Fetterman, he said, I stood for Irina Zarotska. You know, I stood for the poor little kid's family that got killed by the illegal trucker. I stood for voter ID. And he doesn't think his own party did themselves any favors.
I don't care if it's a Republican or Democrat as a president. Just don't do that. Don't do that. Respect the office, regardless who's in that. And now, for me, it's like now when half the people in my party haven't showed up, and then some of them have chosen to just yell and say and scream during all of it, I just don't think that's what we want. And
common sense, so they hate him. They're gonna give him the Tulsi Gabbard treatment. They're going to try to get rid of that guy. He should just switch parties now or become an independent because they're not going to support him. They're going to do everything they can to throw mud at that guy. Because why? He dared say, listen, you don't have to agree with this, but respect the office, respect the speech. And by the way, John Fetterman, as you may know his story, large guy, doesn't fit into suits, doesn't really like wearing suits. He wore a suit to the State of the Union to respect the office. He stood to respect the office, to respect the country and those people that were mentioned in the speech. Why can't they? You know why. Because they're overgrown theater children that make it all about them, and they don't give a damn about their constituents, and they're just there for their own personal gain and their own personal power. That's why these are all answers you already knew, but this is all being proven now in real time. It's absolutely amazing. And those weren't the only reactions, and I told you there was a lot more about the State of the Union yesterday. Usually this thing dies on the vine as soon as it's over and nobody talks about it anymore. This is another reason why this one was different. And bad news for the blue team over there because it got big ratings, it got big approval, and now people are speaking out and voicing their concern about a disrespectful group of idiots that couldn't even respect the office to stand for people who needed some help. Of course, President Trump himself was going to react to this, and this is a beauty. This is one of his longest ever Truth Social posts, which, of course, makes its way over to X. I won't read the whole thing for you. I'm not going to do that, but it's got some interesting nuggets in here. He went on to say yesterday, when you watch low IQ Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib as they screamed uncontrollably last night at the very elegant State of the Union. Of course, he's going to compliment himself with this. Such an important and beautiful event. They had the bulging, bloodshot eyes of crazy people. And then he writes in all capitals, lunatics, mentally deranged and sick, frankly, who should be institutionalized. That's a new one for him. When people can behave like that and knowing that they are crooked and corrupt politicians so bad for our country, we should send them back to where they came from as fast as possible. Why did I bother bringing this up? I get a laugh out of it because nobody writes like that. Only he can do it in his own inimitable way. But also, he's talked about this joking in speeches before. He's done it in interviews. But now he's written it and he's suggested it. What he just suggested there was a whole new level. What do we know now? If we haven't learned this by now, with 2 terms in office, a guy that's been in public life for 50 years, 55 years, a guy that's never shied away from his feelings, wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. Shame on us if we haven't learned how he operates now. You recognize the pattern. When he comes out something and says in a conversational way, and I'll say in the Truth Social post, I'll call that conversational. When he says something like they should be sent back to their country as fast as possible, there's already been work behind the scenes. This is just my takeaway. I just, for years, this is just what I do. I look at news stories. I kind of look through them all. You got to read between the lines. You understand how the news sausage is made. You understand all this. It's a special understanding when it comes to Trump and why he comes out with something like this right now when he didn't exactly put it in writing before. There truly may be works underway to get Ilhan Omar deported. And it's probably most likely based among the Somali fraud back in Minnesota. It may actually be. And there's more senators now, the prominent ones, prominent representatives and senators who are talking about this out loud now when they never really did before. Before, it was always a thing. Last year, 2 years ago, it was always, man, she should be deported, right? Now you've got very, very important, influential people who actually work on this saying, why shouldn't she be deported? Wouldn't that be something? It would be historic. Can you imagine the meltdown from the TDS sufferers on the left? Of course you can. But now you also have people out loud saying how it could be done. Now, one of those people, whether you love him or not, is former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. I know Rudy's gone a little off the deep end these days. We all remember the press conference in 2020. He had the hair dye dripping down his head. It wasn't good. I get it. All right? But let's remember one thing. It wasn't that long ago. He cleaned up New York City. He actually busted up the mafia using RICO charges against him. He may be older now, no matter what you think of Rudy Giuliani, but he still has a brilliant legal mind, and he knows how to do these kinds of things. I've talked about this before. Benny Johnson's a podcast, a great follow. You should follow him. Does a great show, and he had Rudy Giuliani on yesterday. And Benny asks him the question about would it be possible to deport a member of Congress? Like, could this actually happen when we're talking about Ilhan Omar? Again, keep in mind, not recent Giuliani, but his amazing past and what he was able to do in his bed. That mind is still in there. Listen to what Rudy Giuliani says about the possibility. This may shock you.
I didn't actually know that you had such a rich immigration background. Perhaps you could give us just a quick takeaway on what you think is going on with Ilhan Omar. I mean, it seems pretty demonstrable that there have been quite a few immigration crimes that her and her family have committed. She comes from a very, very dark and mysterious background in Somalia. Many people saying that her family's war criminals and so on. How exactly would you investigate Ilhan Omar?
I think it would be pretty easy, actually. I mean, first, you get all the documents that presently exist. Probably in Somalia, there aren't too many good records, I wouldn't think. It seems like a pretty strong allegation that she was married at some point to her brother. Now, here's the interesting part, as I remember it. Her brother would be deportable for immigration fraud. But if you marry a citizen and it's fraud for them, even if you're naturalized, I'm not sure you can take away citizenship on that basis. You certainly can prosecute and put her in jail for it. Mm-hmm. Is she guilty of that? I don't know. It's never been seriously investigated. There's an awful lot of facts that you've collected, I've collected, but are they real? Can you prove them? It sounds like the odds are pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry that was a little bit long, I get it, but that was fascinating to me. This guy knows. Trust Rudy Giuliani when it comes to all the legal stuff and busting up crime and fraud in criminal organizations. Trust him on that. It wasn't that long ago he was doing it in New York City. It really wasn't. He still got the legal mind to be able to do that. Because what he did, if you ever looked into a documentary on this and how he cleaned up in New York, but then specifically went after the mob, it was freaking brilliant, and it was all him. Now they're saying it out loud. Let me just ask you this. Now that people like him, whether you want to admit it or not, Rudy Giuliani is still very influential because he has the ear of the big guy in the Oval Office. You've got several senators, you've got several elected representatives who are saying this kind of stuff out loud about going after Ilhan Omar directly, all tied to the fraud and the immigration crap and all the stuff in Minneapolis and in Minnesota in general. Do you get the feeling they're greasing the wheels? I know that Benny Johnson asked the question, but do you get the feeling they're greasing the wheels so that we're not so shocked when and if it actually happened? This is different. Just keep an eye on that story, I'm telling you, because they were thinking it, but now they're saying it out loud. Amazing. Speaking of New York, the current mayor, and boy, oh my God, juxtapose Rudy Giuliani with the guy that's in the mayor's office now in New York City. Oh my, what are you doing, New York? Anyway, remember this from the other day? Remember this story I had for you? Because I just thought it was disgusting behavior, but now it's deeper than that because of how they didn't handle it. For a refresher and a little review here, here's a bunch of dirtbags throwing snowballs at New York City cops as they try to, check on the situation, make sure people aren't trapped in their homes, make sure they have heat, all this stuff. Throwing snowballs at them and hitting them in the head. I already said it. It goes without saying. That's just disgusting, gross, disrespectful behavior as people who are trying to help you on the streets. But, that's neither here nor there. And the argument happened at the time. I remember hearing this from people. What's the big deal? It's only snowballs. Okay. All right. I'll give you that. Sure. As disgusting as it is, pretty easy to hide something. Screw, blade, anything in a snowball and also throw it at them. Still assault in my book, whatever. But, you may disagree with me on that. But now you have zero backing from New York City's mayor, Mamdani. Zero about this. He did a press conference the other day, the day after it happened. So I think this would have been Tuesday, I think he said it. He called it a snowball fight. Maybe it's just me. In a fight, don't you have to respond and you get to, volley back and forth? There was no fight. These officers were getting pelted with snowballs. So I don't know who this reporter was yesterday, but God love him or her, whoever it was, that gave him a chance to dig out of that and actually said, are you going to backtrack off your comments by calling this a snowball fight where these officers were pelted with snowballs in the street as they were trying to do their jobs? Not only did he not back down off of it, he doubled down on his snowball fight comment. This is amazing to me.
So, Mr. Mayor, are you willing to revise your statement regarding the snowball fight, given that this was not exactly a friendly back-and-forth snowball fight? The police that were there were not throwing any snowballs. They were getting pelted themselves. And number two, have you considered or would you consider banning these crowdsourcing events because they can and sometimes do get out of hand?
So I'm not going to be banning snowball fights or organized snowball fights. I've shared my thoughts with New Yorkers, and I continue to believe that what we are seeing in this response to this winter blizzard from the city workers as a whole, and that includes the hardworking men and women of the NYPD, is part of why the city's getting back on its feet, and I'm appreciative of that work.
Okay, so the reporter, sorry, long question. It was hard to hear, but, you had to get her in there for context. Are you gonna back down off that comment? You're gonna backtrack off that? No, and I'm not gonna ban. Did you get that? Now he's got a new term for it: organized snowball fights. And you may be thinking still, why are you going off on this? What is the big deal? It's freaking snowball. Okay, all right, fine. I'll give you that. That's all right. But what if, God forbid, I hope this doesn't happen, but what if, now that you've established this, and these things always kind of roll downhill, what if you've already established this, that he does not back his own police officers in something as he thinks as innocuous as a snowball fight? Won't even back him in that and say, that was disgusting. Don't throw snowballs at cops, you idiots. Instead of simply saying that, right, which would have been a New York way to say it, I'm not going to ban organized snowball fights. If he won't back his cops even in something like that, or nobody died, what happens if there's a real attack? What happens if they say, and this does happen, with bad people get this in their heads and they say, they keep pushing and taking more ground until they get pushed back upon. That's just how bad, that's the mindset of bad people. What if he doesn't back them when something really serious happens? What if he doesn't then? If even in something as simple as this, where all you had to do was sit behind that podium and say, don't do that. We don't like that. We don't like that. And I was wrong. It wasn't a snowball fight. I looked at the video again, and those cops were attacked by snowballs. Don't do that. How tough would that have been to say? But he won't even back his own police officers when that happens. Trust me when I tell you, bad people see that and they say, he doesn't. He's not going to back the cops at all. We got this. We got this. Bad people hear that and they react to that. I know it just seems like a snowball attack. I get there were only snowballs for now. If he won't back him now, will he back him then? And let's hope it doesn't even come to that. But I don't know what the hell you did, New York, but you were in a world of hurt. All right, let's get out of this. There wasn't a lot of fun things to talk about today. Well, I think the approval ratings for the State of the Union speech were fun, but, whatever. But Friday will be fun tomorrow. We'll dig up fun we'll make some fun if there's none of the news. We'll find it, but thanks for being with me. The Wicked Radio live stream Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. X when it's agreeing with me. Facebook and YouTube. The audio podcast, as always, replays and all that stuff. And thanks for finding me. Oh, by the way, in the audio podcast, wherever you like to get them, whatever podcast platform, just look for Wicked Radio with Bill Adams. Subscribe, download, whatever it is. Follow, and you'll find me right there as well. Thank you so much. Make it a wicked awesome Thursday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.